everybody having arrived, let me call this meeting to order of the City of Davis Recreation and Parks Commission. I note that we have Vice Chair Chambers and Commissioners Hurt, LaFleur, Marigo, Ono, and Redmond present. Commissioner Redmond participating as a voting member tonight in the absence of Commissioner Siegel. So we have a quorum. We have 7 members on the dais, and we're ready to jump in with item 2, which is approval of the agenda. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
Make a motion to approve.
Moved by Commissioner Ono. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Commissioner Marigo. Is there any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Are there any noes? Are there any abstentions? Okay, we'll record that as a 7-0-0 vote. And now we move on to, yes, brief announcements from staff, commissioners, and council liaisons. We want to start with Deanne and staff and go to Vice Mayor Chapman, and then up to here on with the commission members.
Sure, I'll begin. Thank you. Good evening, commissioners. Happy New Year. So for a few brief updates this evening, first I wanted to share an update on a fairly, it's a good-sized capital project that we're working on, but we haven't reported out on it to the commission at this point, mostly because it's been in design phase for a while. But the project actually broadly falls under deferred maintenance, which has been our focus over the last year and will continue to be our focus given the myriad of items that fall under the category of deferred maintenance and the needs that we have. In February of last year, our staff noticed that the large shade structure in Community Park appeared to be in very poor condition. And in fact, that was kind of well known amongst staff. Some of you may know it as the solar shade structure. So it's where things are staged, during 4th of July and such. So we approached our engineers about it, which then led to a structural assessment. And the assessment found some fairly significant issues with the support beams, with the roof in particular. And that led us to close the shade structure since that time. So you may have noticed you walk by it, there's been a temporary fencing around that. And we then hired an on-call consultant to help us prepare plans for what would be the best and most cost-effective repair to preserve the structure, but also be mindful of sort of the bottom dollar cost. And so we've now received those plans, and it turns out the most cost-effective approach at this point for repair is to remove the upper part of the shade structure, which at this point consists of angled corrugated asbestos roofing. So remove that, which would retain the existing columns and some of the beams that are still in good condition, and then replace that with like a lattice roof. So the primary structure will still remain. It's just the roof that's being removed and something else being placed on top. After first round of plans were prepared, the city electrician weighed in on the project and actually noted, because that's where we get a lot of our electricity actually for big things that we do in the park, including, of course, 4th of July, that the electrical system on the structure needed to be replaced. So, and that was for safety reasons. So the electrical outlets at the shade structure were added to the scope of the design work. So here we are, and at this point now the project is undergoing a second round review with our building department, and it will be going out to bid in the spring. So that's why I wanted to bring it to commission tonight just as an update. While we're getting final cost estimates, right now our engineers are expecting that this will come in at around $360,000 for repair. And I want to be very, very mindful of the fact that this does not include any soft costs or contingencies. This is just to perform the work. Second, I wanted to share an important update regarding the council meeting from last night, specifically the item brought forward from our public works staff with input, of course, from our park staff on electric equipment. In this report, park staff shared our initial findings regarding our ongoing testing of electric equipment, which I know we've talked about here before, specifically how it's going with the electric hedgers, string trimmers, and some blowers. Subsequent to the staff presentation last night and a brief public comment, council ultimately directed staff to develop a transition plan, ultimately arriving at a fully electric park maintenance equipment complement. So we will be working on that. There was no hard timeline associated to this transition plan, although 3 years was thrown out as sort of the outer bounds of this. But of course, just retaining the flexibility as we learn about all the new challenges that we might face. We don't exactly know what we don't know in terms of how we'll deal with infrastructure challenges, budgetary challenges, and just the workload itself. So we will be returning back at various points to report out on the transition plan, but also the tools, and we'll be sharing that with this commission, of course. So you'll be hearing a lot more from us on this, how we intend to phase in the electric equipment, and really the small wins that we can actually experience now. So for, I'd like to just update and share again, I know we've touched on it before, but Central Park in particular is already a location in which we use electric equipment. But some of these easy wins that we're looking at right now is adding on an additional park location to test the equipment fully electric, right? To see how long it might take to do a park of a more small size, so something like maybe Chestnut Park, for example. And then also we have just released our landscape maintenance RFP, which I believe Dave will be chatting with you about later this evening. And in that RFP, and for the first time ever, we actually specifically called out, and this was intentional, 10%, right? So we're asking our proposers to submit to us a plan where 10% of the maintenance would be using green equipment. So we get to decide, of course, along with whoever we select, how that 10% plays out, whether that's a few percent in each district, whether that looks like green belts, whether that looks like pocket parks, but it was an intentional decision to ensure that we're making headway on the use of electric equipment for our Parks Department. So more to come on that. And then lastly, as was shared with you all via email, we did release our community needs assessment survey. So I just want to reiterate that we're really leaning on this commission to leverage your networks and to please share that link as far and wide as possible so that we can get as robust a response as possible. Really, this is such an important opportunity. It's such an important opportunity. We really need to take advantage of getting this information back from our community so that we can make informed choices about how we stand up programming, how we're dealing with our parks, and what amenities people want to see. So again, I just really encourage you all to please get folks to fill it out. It takes very little time, and yet will have significant impact. And that closes on February 20th. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Deanne. Any questions for Deanne on her report?
I just had a couple of questions. For the shade structure in Community Park, is there a generally expected timeline that would be available for this summer, or does it look like it would be beyond summer?
Yeah, apologies. I don't have a timeline to provide tonight, and I don't want to give out, misleading information. I just know that if it were to go to bid, there's, quite a lengthy process after bid in spring. So I don't know. I can't.
Well, perhaps you can bring that back.
Yeah, of course.
That would be terrific.
Sure.
And then you mentioned the green maintenance equipment. There's no rough target date yet, but once there is a target date, would that be extended to park contractors, which do a substantial amount of work for the city?
I'm not sure. We didn't really get into that. I don't know Mr. Mayor would like to comment on that this evening. But I think the intent is that all the services that would be conducted in the city period would be with green and electric tools.
Great, thank you.
Commissioner Marigo.
I'm going to follow up on what Bob said, because a couple things. One, the shade structure, I get it, that we want, that it's been fenced off and it needs to be repaired though. But I go back in a little bit of history of my short time on this commission, is that we've talked about a bunch of different projects going on within the city. Arroyo Park, moving the zip line, putting a shade structure, a permanent shade structure that was just outside the pool area, and then the community park doing the bathrooms. These are all projects that you're talking about, and I have to get my head around that these projects with the city take a long time. But we keep talking about, oh, we're gonna do this, but I'm not seeing anything of things that we've talked about get done. And then maybe it's just my expectation of, hey, it takes years to get these things done, but we talk about these things, we're gonna say, hey, let's get them done, and then nothing ever seems like it gets done. Because I've gone to Arroyo Park and I haven't seen the shade structure get built. I haven't seen the zip line get moved, even though a year and a half ago we said, hey, let's take a vote, let's move it, and nothing's happening on there. So before we start going to, hey, let's build another shade structure, don't these other things need to happen before that? It's a question.
No, thank you for the question. So I think that this is maybe more about communication than the projects themselves, because the projects are in queue and they're in various phases of development, if you will. And it is a lengthy queue, and development does take time. So with regard to Arroyo, specifically the shade structure, for example, that will be kicking off in the spring. And so we would come back to you next month to probably report, hey, we're breaking ground on that. And Dave will report out on this tonight, our Healthy Play, all of those playgrounds, all of them with the exception of one, were just installed. So, I mean, we do try to provide updates on existing projects, but perhaps it would be helpful, and I will toss that out to the commission to see if it would be helpful to, make a list with various sort of in progress or, where we're at with respect to all the projects, so that it's easier to keep track of where we're at with them, because that is how we handle things internally. But I could see that if you don't have access to something like that externally, how it could feel like there's just a sea of projects with no expected end date, which is not the case. There are expected end dates, but the timelines are long. And that's just the reality of public projects.
And I have to get my head wrapped around being in private industry, that things happen rather quickly. In the city, they take longer, and I get that, I understand that. My other one is, so I was out, I talked with you both about, I stopped and talked with some of the park folks today in the parks, and they brought up concerns to me about the battery equipment, going to battery equipment. Josh, I'm gonna go on. I think the city council has good intentions, but reality is, around my house, battery operation works great. Everything I have, except my lawnmower, because it hasn't died yet, I use battery, it's great. But when you're talking about going to green belts, going to these large parks, the battery technology is not there, and they don't have a way to recharge these batteries. And I think it is, if we get ahead of ourselves and set this plan for, hey, we want to be completely converted in 3 years, I think we're going to be wasting money, because it doesn't make sense if the technology's not there. Why not wait for the technology to get there and then spend the appropriate amount of money to switch over and make sure that we can move forward? So it just, when I hear the commission and I hear the staff folks talk about, hey, they want to, just switch us over to battery, I know it's not there. You can see it. The technology's not there for battery. I'm all about it. I think it's great. But why spend money on something where we're going to be wasting money probably in the long end if we go to battery and jump right off? I understand Davis wants to be on the leading edge, and I'm all for that, but it doesn't make sense to spend money on something that doesn't make sense.
Jim? Yeah. Thank you, I appreciate those comments, and I just a couple of quick points of clarification, just so I don't want to dive into a topic that's not on the agenda. So I totally understand where you're coming from, and to be clear, what was moved forward last night was more so, there was an extensive staff report that laid out it was mostly weed whackers and trimmers, right, lined equipment, that staff had reported back, and was in the staff report or in the field, that the battery life on those was sufficient to do the work they needed to do. That was what came back and was presented in the staff report last night, from information from field workers to our staff and then to us last night. So what the idea was can we look at certain tools that can be transitioned that we know there may not be, well, what we're seeing is that there's not a problem, they're not challenged by the battery life, and can we get a plan to transition towards those? And then at the same time, running parallel to that, what does it look like to transition the larger pieces of equipment, mainly blowers, and then also we look at chainsaws, right? Larger chainsaws that are cutting larger trees where the battery life wasn't sufficient. The 3-year timeline was something that somebody threw out. Nobody agreed that was the plan to move to that. There was no coalescing around a timeline at all, that 3 years would be the goal. And then so they're right now, what we wanted to happen and what we were instructing or asking staff to do was to really just come back with more detailed information on what this could look like. And what that could look like was something that kind of low-hanging fruit, if you will, around devices that currently, what we're hearing and what we see is that they can operate and maintain in that regard. And then what's the timeline for those? Because we still have 4 or 5 years worth of life on gas-powered equipment. From what we understand, they've purchased a lot of equipment, so that would still be there, unless the city council decides to enact an ordinance that bans all SOREs, right? Those engines, and that would apply to your contractors. Back to, I think it was Commissioner Ono's question, I think was around, would you hold good contractors accountable? That would be if the city enacted a ban on gas-powered devices. We're not there yet. I think ultimately that's where what we talked about last night is to get there, what that timeline looks like. Again, 3 years was something that somebody threw out that I think when what we heard when staff comes back, I don't know if that's a realistic timeline.
And then just last thing I have, this is a good thing. I was out walking and I came up on a sign, was Adopt a Park, and I love it. It had a skew on there, a great little sign that was stuck down in there. And as I walk my dog now, I see those. I think those are great things to have around, and people can, scan it. They need to be placed more around the city, but it's just a little lawn sign. I think those are wonderful, just to tell people what they are, because I know they do a lot of stuff with Adopt a Park, and people can come out and help that. I think that's great.
Great.
Chairman, can I just address one other issue? I just want to make sure with Commissioner Morago's comment. So just to be with Arroyo Park, the other pieces that have come up, right? Obviously, the zip line piece is still in litigation, and that's why that's not happening. If you follow, you can see the closed session agendas, you can see who's suing the city and so that is tied up in litigation, and that's why that's not moving forward. We know that this commission has put forward new structures to be put in place of where that currently is and the movement of it, but all of this right now is in litigation and unfortunately in a holding pattern. So that's where that one is.
I had no idea that was in litigation, so
Yeah.
that's good to know.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Great, thanks, Commissioner Morego.
I have some
Are there
updates for you as well.
Yes,
More
please.
updates. So we have community pool, the instruction pool is going through the replastering, so an update on a project that was funded. And it just got plastered this week. The project included demo of the old surface, removal of tile, replacement of skimmers, and upgraded lights to LED. And so we're at the end of it. Like I said, the plaster was completed this week, and they're going to be filling it and then adding chemicals and then hopefully reopening it up so that way darts can get back into it. In the meantime, they have been able to use the competition pool, so they haven't been out of the facility completely. And then I think last time, Miko, you had asked about a junior basketball update, which just started this week, even though it was drizzling on them.
So for the 2024 season, we have 50 teams consisting of 482 players. There are 20 girls teams and 30 boy teams. Just for comparison, last year in 2023, we also had 50 teams of 479 players and 20 girl teams and 30 boy teams. This year we did a little bit of extra outreach over to our Montgomery school. Those schools, that school site had typically had programs that had been canceled, and so we did some additional outreach and actually tied it into our scholarship program. And so we went out there and did some boots on the ground work with staff, did a lot of translations of flyers and handed them out in person as kids were getting picked up, partnered with the DJUSD Bridge program to try to reach our underserved population, and got 2 girls teams filled up. So that started up this week. They're super excited. Because this program does not run all on staff, we have about 60 volunteer coaches, about 16 paid staff who are either referees or coaches. And we have some individuals who are coaching 2 teams. This year, we have moved to reversible jerseys. So in the past, if you ever saw, it was t-shirts. And so this year, we added a little flair to it. And so the new jerseys are reversible.
They look great.
Yep, so they'll feel very
My daughter was
professional out there. Yes.
A t-shirt was not sufficient. This is like the real deal.
This is like the real
great
team.
job.
So a lot of the kids are very excited about that. And then thank you everyone for completing your requirement for the AB 2404, the girls part, or the, sorry, the
Girls in sports.
yeah, I'm like, what's it called? The equity in sports training. And so we have also launched a community survey back out to our community members, our past participants, and trying to get some more information about where are the girls in our community, what are they participating in, what do they want more access to. So that survey is out, went out on January 2nd and closes on February 2nd. And hopefully this will provide us guidance for additional programming that we will offer in the future, and comes out of the settlement agreement that we had a few years ago. That's all my updates.
Great. Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you for the upgrades of the jerseys. I think the kids, when we handed them out at practice the other day, they were more than thrilled. They're like, they're reversible. So that was awesome. One of the things that I would like to just inquire about is that each team has 10 players approximately on their roster, and each coach is given 3 basketballs. And the basketballs are in pretty dismal shape. And 3 balls is not even close to what you need for a team of 10 players. I mean, you need at least 5, because if you want to do anything dribbling, especially with those 3rd and 4th graders, they're antsy, they don't want to stand around and listen. So what's the procedure of perhaps putting some funds into the basketball program to at least get 5 balls per team, and maybe upgrading equipment? Or even something as simple as doing away with that coach clipboard. Like, that's great, but if we can use some of those resources, like the coach's shirts, I mean, those are also great. But if we can do away with some of those costs to put into equipment that's like an absolute necessity, I would really support that.
Yeah, I think that information needs to just make it back to the staff person.
Okay.
And so I was out on the courts this week, just checking things out as well, and I heard that from 2 other coaches.
Yeah.
So that message has been transferred over to the coordinator, so hopefully we'll get some more balls ordered and distributed out.
Great. Thank you.
Anything else on Tamiko's report? Okay, Dave, you're up.
As Deanne mentioned earlier, we are live with the landscape maintenance RFP. So we will be going out to bid for both contracts this year. Not much else to report on that. Oh, I'm sorry. Well, I thought I was speaking on the agenda. So, and then the other thing that I'd like to present to you, as you know, back in 2002 or 2022, we worked at the same time on the Healthy Play program to secure matching funds for several playground renovations. Currently, we are in the process of renovating 5 of those playgrounds. 3 are already completed. Campania Playground, which is right across the street from Barabetto Park in a greenbelt down there. You can see the old structure was just a small playhouse. There wasn't much to offer, a very large footprint actually for what was offered there, and then a huge grass area surrounding it with a small picnic pavilion. When we conducted outreach out there, what we found was that there was a lot of activity going on out there that the residents of that community were not happy with. A lot of drug use, teenage angst, if you will. And so they wanted to reactivate that area in a way that was unique, with Barabetto being right there across the street and Atlantis Park being right down the street from Barabetto. They didn't want to see another cookie cutter playground go in. And so what we ended up with is an adult fitness equipment system that went in out there. So as you can see, it's much larger, it has a lot more to offer. While it is designed for adults and teenage kids, it can be used by children as well with supervision. Fits the footprint much better. Unfortunately, I couldn't get everything into the picture, but you can see there's some signage out there that gives a little bit of information on how to use it. And the idea with, as part of the Healthy Play Grant, it makes physical activity more available, enjoyable, affordable, and readily available. You can take your kids to the park and actually get some physical activity yourself. So very unique feature, something that we hope to expand on in future years when we're looking at future renovations, is activating some of our sort of unused areas in different ways. The second playground innovation was the Donato Playground, which sits out in a green belt just kind of south of Cobell Boulevard. Sort of on the east side of town, out by Mace Ranch Park. The structure that was out there, as you can see, was just a small 2 to 5 year old play structure. It didn't have much to offer, a couple of slides and a couple of platforms. There were some additional features that used to be out there, but those were disengaged. And unfortunately, those components were no longer available. And so there was really not a lot of option for us to put anything back in their place. And so when we conducted outreach out in this area, the residents of that area just wanted to see something a little bit nicer. They still wanted a 2 to 5 year old playground to go in, but they wanted something that had a little bit more to offer. You can also, Yeah. You can also see that the existing play surfacing out there is sand, which limits accessibility. And so, now we can go ahead. So you can see we put in something that has a little bit more play features to offer. The key elements being balancing, brachiating, climbing, spinning, sliding, and swinging. There's a small spinner there to the right you can see. There's a tire swing in the back, and then there's several features incorporated in the main play structure itself that facilitate all of these forms of development for children. And then we went ahead and filled the footprint with engineered wood fiber, which is more accessible than sand. And then the final completed playground currently is Sandy Motley. This is actually the existing primary structure. The footprint that we filled, which you'll see on the next slide, had nothing in it. It was a sand pit where several features had been removed because they'd been broken, and there was just, over the years, there was really no idea on what the footprint could be used for. So when we conducted outreach out there, again, we offered something that would complement the primary structure out there, but was designed for 2 to 5 year olds. Again, developmentally appropriate progression of skill opportunities through beginning, intermediate, and advanced elements. You can see that there are some small climbing features as well as some more rigorous climbing features. Encourages movement through running, chasing, and exploring. It sits in the middle of several pathways, which scientific research has also shown pathways to accessible opportunities for play are actually great for social and physical development. It also maximized the potential for that footprint there. As I said, it was quite a large footprint that was really not being used to its potential, and so this new feature has been very well received. I'd also like to report, even though it's not on the slide, since I turned this into Tamiko, we have completed a 4th playground installation over at Mace Ranch Park. The 2 to 5 year old lot that was there has also been replaced. So likely at our next commission meeting, we'll update you with that playground, as well as La Playa, which is also being replaced currently.
And Dave, I was wanting to comment on the Donato one. So I live over by there. That was always our go-to ones with our little ones. And our Mason Ranch neighborhood around there has regenerated in the last 5 years, and now we have a whole crop of young little kids coming up again. It's been great. We had an impromptu get-together over there at Donato MLK Day. And I'll tell you what, it was amazing to see those kids all over that thing. I'd say they were in the age range of maybe about 9 months up to about 8 years. And I got to tell you, they were all over it. The parents were happy, and it was very easy to monitor what the kids were doing. And I even heard comments on they were real happy not to see sand there, and they like the kind of that chip foundation that you all put in there. So I'll give you some kudos. I'll tell you, it really passed the muster this last weekend.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's great. Wonderful. Any other comments on Dave's report?
Just one thing, are we doing, because I know for some parks, we've done like, not open houses, but like grand openings on them. Seems like these just kind of slipped in and were open.
With the last set of renovations that we did, we actually did do soft openings for those as well. So I believe you attended Sindanueva last year, I think, when we opened it.
I've done a couple of them.
Yeah.
I know there was one that I still haven't got to.
So typically that's kind of how we've operated is we do get people who, we've literally received pictures of kids standing outside the temporary fencing, drooling to get onto those play structures. And so typically the way that we operate is that we'll do a soft opening, and then in the past we have done sort of grand openings for some of the playgrounds. I don't think that with these three that we will be doing that.
Yeah, I think the idea is that these were what we would consider just kind of pop in, pop out sort of replacements versus like what we had at Rose Creek, which was a full renovation of the entire footprint and a much larger project, which, for us really, we felt like, okay, this is substantial enough where we want to gather the community and whatnot. And I know that in the past with ones that are of sort of this nature, like turnout is relatively low, so we're always trying to keep in mind like the demands that we're asking of both the commission and our council members to show up to these things. And so it's possible that we'll just do maybe one big tour of something where we can knock everything out, maybe in an afternoon, but not necessarily make a big ceremony out of every single location for the reasons I just mentioned.
Great. Anything else on Dave's report? Okay, before we go to Mayor Chapman, I gave him a demotion earlier, oops. Are there any reports from the commission members? Commissioner Ono.
Thank you, Eric. I just wanted to pass on a well done to city staff. I was really pleased with the community needs assessment web pages. I thought that was extremely well done, and hopefully will garner interest and response to the survey. Also during the holidays, I walked over to the North Star pond cleanup, and work is progressing really well. I haven't been there the last couple of weeks. I don't know if it's done, but
I think it's finished.
it is great.
It looked finished the other, well, I don't know, all the equipment was out of there, and it was, of course, it was dark when I walked by it, but it looked pretty cleaned up, so.
We're on the tail end of
Alright.
sort of the heavy removal phase of the plan, but the harvester actually had some engine problems. So currently they're in the process of getting that fixed, and then they'll come out and finish the rest of the harvesting of the materials that are out there. If you notice on the eastern side of the pond, there's still quite a bit of cattail out there. We'd like to get all of that removed. And then there's some work to still be done on the shoreline as well.
Thank you. And I also went by the interim community park restroom fixes, and that looked really, really good. So obviously there's more work to be done, but for an interim basis, I think it looked really good. Thank you.
That's great. Commissioner Redmond.
I also went by the bathrooms, and it's really nice to see new toilet seats.
We celebrate the small victories.
I was gonna say, it's the small things. It's the small things.
The other thing that I wanted to mention is, I have talked to Dave about this, is he got some patching material for our our sports courts, and it seems to be, when I've looked at where they've been patched, it seems to be holding really well. So that's, to me, a huge achievement. On the flip side, I was at Redwood the other day, And I don't generally, I mean, you play on whatever court's available, but I was on the northeast court, and there's a lot of concerns I have about what's happening. I don't know what our warranty is. I don't even remember how long ago those courts were put in. But they really need to be looked at. And I know, talking to Dave, we can't do a lot of patching because of the weather and the low temperatures, but they need to really be looked at. That one particularly, and I was talking to somebody and they said that at different times, and I don't know if it's rain-induced, cold-induced, heat-induced, but it bubbles. The court's even bubbling up some. But that court in particular is, and I didn't look at the tennis court because people were playing on it, but it's a defect that I think has happened, and I don't know, hopefully we have a warranty to cover it. Do you know how long ago those courts were put in? I've lost track.
Redwood was renovated approximately 2 years ago.
2 years ago?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was hoping that the warranty would be, longer than that. But anyway, I just thought I'd point that out.
We'll get out there and take a look at it, Georgina. As I've explained to Georgina, and I'll explain to the entire commission, the materials that we use to seal some of these cracks that are coming up, as long as we catch them early, it's very effective. But it also requires us to apply it during consistent weather, so it has to be above 60 degrees, has to stay that way for at least 24 hours while the materials cure. And so currently at this time of year, we just haven't seen that consistency yet. So as we move closer to spring and we start to see the weather warm up, then we'll be out there doing some of these repairs. And then some of what you're talking about, the bubbling, I know that at Redwood at the time that it was renovated, that was an issue. I wasn't the liaison with the construction company at the time, so I do know that there was a punch list that was created and that a final walkthrough was done, and everything was signed off on. So I don't, to answer your question about a warranty, I don't think that there's anything regarding that we have the ability to sort of access to get those fixes, but certainly in phase 2 of the project, we can talk with the construction managers about some of the issues that we've seen and at least see what kind of options we have for moving forward to fix those.
Yeah, because it has gotten worse. Yeah, thank you.
So are you talking about cracks in the pavement or something with the surface of the court that's kind of delaminating or?
I think what Georgina's talking about right now is some of that delaminating that you're talking about, but what we've been fixing are actual cracks in the surface. And it's just kind of the nature of the beast. The materials we purchased actually were from a company that works with professional tennis courts. It expands and contracts as heat and cold cause those cracks to expand and contract. So unlike mortar or concrete, if we poured that in there, right, as you got that expansion or that contraction, it would just crumble and it would lose its effectiveness. This is a material that actually expands and contracts with those. And so it's much more effective in the long term. It also comes in the colors of the courts, and so it doesn't require us to actually have to paint over when we apply it. So it's literally designed for this purpose.
I just wanted to add, the cracks work really well, but one thing that happened at Chestnut, and I have no idea what did this, but it almost looks like a pogo stick without the rubber on the bottom, has punched in a bunch of holes, which I'm sure, Dave, you've seen. And I mean, I'm talking maybe 30, especially on this one court, and I can't imagine what creates that kind of, what tool is being used to do that, and there's not much we can do about it. But and I haven't seen any more because all of them have been patched. But it's just one of those things that, at least if we stay on top of it, it seems to be holding.
It sounds like a pogo stick, actually. I mean, it sounds like some kind of vandalism.
Yeah, because they're like little, they're little round
Yeah.
sort of things like this, and they're just, so, I don't know.
There's a lot of other activity that goes on the Chestnut tennis courts rather than just tennis. So.
I know, and I don't know what that is, but.
I mean, you just see kids playing and riding their bikes and whatever else, I mean, it's not just tennis, so I'm sure the wear and tear from what is not supposed to be there is the culprit.
Yeah, and that it's not
Meant for-
centralized for
Yeah.
Chestnut. It actually happens quite a bit
Sure.
on others.
Sure.
Slide Hill, when we first renovated it, almost within the first week, we got graffiti
Yeah.
on a brand new painted surface, so that was pretty frustrating.
Any other brief announcements? Commissioner LaFleur.
Yeah, I'm just looking for a status update on those 2 closed facilities at Slide Hill Park. You know, that art mound hill and then the actual structure, Slide Hill Park.
So currently, we're working with our Public Works Department to, as you know, the steps have been disengaged because they are no longer safe for public use. We're in the process right now of having those steps replaced, so we're working with our Public Works Department. We're actually in-house going to do demolition and then also reinstall metal steps in lieu of wood so that we get some longevity. It'll be galvanized, so it should be, the longevity should be much longer. I mean, we actually did get quite a bit of age out of the steps that are currently there, but we anticipate this increasing the lifespan by, you know, multiple times more. The other structure is called Watchman Number 8. It's actually an art installation, so while it is in the park, it's not managed by park staff. We do inspect it to make sure that it's safe because it is an asset within our park, but currently our arts and culture department is working with I believe the Rotarian group to have that either fixed or some of those components removed.
Great. Commissioner
I
Rand.
had one more question, because I walk all over Davis. I always check to see what bathrooms are open and closed, and some are locked. And I'm just wondering, how come some are locked and some aren't?
So, kind of like the courts, we get a lot of vandalism, we get a lot of damage that are done to our restrooms. They're open in perpetuity, which causes a lot of problems, right? We get a lot of unhoused individuals who use them as shelters a lot of times, and then some of the sort of nefarious activities that go on. We get a lot of graffiti, we get a lot of vandalism, fixtures removed from the walls, things like that. And so when that happens, we shut them down. We collaborate with our facilities department, who actually manages most of that. So we talked about the community park improvements. That was a collaborative effort between the Parks Department and the Facilities Department to sort of beautify those until we can get the new bathrooms installed. So we're currently working with our Facilities Department on these ones that are disengaged currently to get all of the fixtures reinstalled and then get them painted or whatever the case is so that we can reopen those.
Is there a bathroom at Wellet, at the park there?
At Walnut?
No, Wellet, you know, Wellet School, the park?
There's a porta potty out there that's,
I saw one close to the school. Is that
Yeah.
considered part of the
yeah,
park?
that, we manage that.
Okay, and then the one at Cesar Chavez, I don't think that's ever been opened in that park.
So that restroom has actually been shut down. It's shut down predates my employment with the city.
Okay. It's been shut down that long?
Yeah, it's been shut down for several years. It's so far off the road, it's hard to police, and actually, a young couple sort of commandeered it and used it as an apartment. They actually set it up as a living space, and but there was also a lot of damage that had been done to that restroom as well. And my understanding is that there was so much damage that was done, and it was consistently happening, that they disengaged it without sort of an end date in sight. And that's why by the tennis courts, we have a porta potty out there. That is one of the restrooms that we are in talks about trying to get reopened. You know, like I said, it predates my employment here, so I'd like to see it opened again, and if we do start experience some of those issues, to kind of brainstorm with facilities on what maybe some deterrents we can use, better lighting perhaps, or just working with PD for a greater presence out there, which we've already we've already engaged them for some other things that we have going on, like the dog parks and things like that. So it is on our radar. It's just, you know, sometimes things are just a slow moving process.
Okay, and I just have one more park. The one over by the soccer field in Wild Horse. I'm not sure what that big park area is. Is that
Sandy
the
Motley.
Sandy Motley area? I don't believe there's bathrooms there. There's some bathrooms by the garbage area. But
Yeah, there's
those
porta
are
potties
locked.
out there.
Those are locked a lot also.
Those, Those are managed by us as well, so they should be open.
They should be open. Okay.
Yeah, so the thing about the porta potties is we don't actually service them internally. That's part of the service that we pay for with
Okay.
United Site Services. Sandy Motley is engaged so much that the services out there are supposed to be twice a week. So we do on the weekends get complaints at times that it's, you know, either it needs to be restocked or it's full and it needs to be serviced.
Sure.
But we have a pretty good working relationship with United Site Services that they come out pretty quickly and take care of those things when we're aware of them.
Okay, thanks.
Great. Okay, anything else? All right, let's go to Mayor Chapman. I'm sorry, Mayor Chapman, I never got the memo that you're mayor now. Congratulations. Maybe you've been mayor for a year and I just didn't aware.
I haven't, I'm about a week into it, so.
Oh, wonderful. Well,
Thank you, appreciate that.
congratulations.
No, I have no updates besides I was gonna fill you in on some of the actions from last night, but Dan did a great job with that, so, other than that, I have nothing on my end, thank you.
Okay, thanks. All right, well, we will move on to item 4, which is public comment. Is there any public comment? There is none. So item number 5 is the consent calendar, which is just our commission minutes from the November 15th, 2023 meeting. In reviewing those minutes, are there any suggested corrections? And absent any corrections, is there a motion to approve the consent calendar, which again is just the November 15th minutes?
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Marigo, is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner LaFleur, is that it? Thank you. Commissioner Hurd seconds. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Are there any abstentions? Okay, we'll record that as a 7-0-0 vote, and the minutes are approved. Item 6 is to designate the chair and vice chair positions for the 2024 calendar term. So this is something we do annually, and this is our meeting to do it. So are there nominations, or is there a motion? Well, let me ask first if there are nominations. We'll start off with chair for the position of chair for the 2024 calendar term.
I'd like to nominate Commissioner Chambers.
Okay, we have Vice Chair Chambers nominated as chair. Are there any other nominations? Okay. Is there, well, are you willing to serve, Madam Vice Chair?
Yes.
Okay. And are there, maybe we can do this all at once and package it as a single motion. Are there nominations for Vice Chair?
Yeah,
Commissioner Hurd.
yes, Mr. Chair, I would like to nominate our Park Ranger Emeritus, Ranger Zor, and I think we do an exemplary job.
Wonderful. So we have a nomination for Commissioner LaFleur. Are there other nominations for Vice Chair? Okay, we're operating by consensus here. Is there a motion for appointing a chair and vice chair for the 2024 calendar year? With those nominations, is someone going to put it in the form of a motion?
I move we vote to affirm those nominations that were on the floor.
Okay, wonderful. Thanks, Commissioner Hurd. Is there a second? Seconded by Commissioner Ono. Is there any discussion? Okay, so the motion is to appoint Commissioner Miyako Chambers as chair and Commissioner Rick LaFleur as vice chair for the 2024 calendar year. If there's no discussion, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any noes? Any abstentions? Okay, that's a 7-0-0 vote, and congratulations to our new chair and vice chair. And I'm told this takes effect at the next meeting, but if you want to take it right now, I am happy to turn it over to you either way.
I'll let you finish out today.
Okay. One last little bit behind the microphone here for me. Okay, well, that's great. Looking forward to the year ahead. Item 6B is to review and discuss 2024 commission goals and a proposed work plan. And Tamika, did you want to introduce this in any way, or did you want me to draw everyone's attention to what was in our commission meeting packet?
Sure. So I included in our packet the 2023 work plan that we had talked about. And then in the far right-hand column, I just wrote in some of the things that I was able to pull out as achievements that met that goal. So the goal you had last year was to provide support assistance to Parks and Community Services staff as it relates to increasing community engagement. And you all attended ribbon cutting events, had our Rec and Park field meeting at Arroyo Pool, Greenbelt and Park, and Westwood Park. We had representation from our commission at our Kids Council outreach events that we had at Pioneer Park. And then there was some other ribbon cutting, like I said, ribbon cutting events. So that was one way of engaging with the community. And then providing support and assistance to Parks and Community Services staff for expanding arts. We had the recommendation of the dog bench in Community Park that went through and up to council. Providing support and assistance to staff as it relates to the development and implementing maintenance standards for both in-house and contract services. And you all recommended the 2023 landscape maintenance standards document that was also used and referenced in the RFP that just went out. Providing support and assistance to community services staff as it relates to the coordination, implementation, and update of the Parks Master Plan, which we know that the RFP was awarded to DUDEC, and the Community Needs Assessment and Master Plan has been in progress, and you all will be very much engaged in this in the next 16 to 18 months. Monitoring assistance and monitor and provide assistance to staff related to the Central Park Interactive Water Feature, known as Natalie's Corner. That's also ongoing. We have a representative community liaison on the Corona Committee. Providing support and assistance for the improvements of Community Park. And last time we had the bike pump track and then the restroom renovation. We had the grand opening in October. And then we have the RFP that was released for the bathroom renovation this last month. So this is a time where we look at what you all want to achieve as a goal for the commission. This is not where you get to determine what the department does or what staff do or what council would do. This is what you all would like to accomplish as commissioners on this Rec and Park Commission. Staying within our purview of our enabling resolution and the projects that we have set in place. So some of these things I made little stars next to, such as the community engagement. I think that's something that we always look to our commissioners to have as a priority, as well as the master plan, updated community needs assessment. That's something that you helped to kind of kick off and go through the RFP process with us, and now we're actively in that process. It's going to be a 16 to 18 month process overall, so I think that's something helpful to keep on your goals for this next year as well. I can open it up for you guys to brainstorm if you have some time to think about this. Some other things that I know are coming down the pipeline for us is just increasing volunteerism. And so how do you activate within your own communities or districts to really engage more partnership in the neighborhood and to be that connective piece within your neighborhood to get active projects going. And then also maybe looking at our enabling resolution to give something a little bit more clear cut or definitive for goals or overseeing. I know ours is kind of broad. We have our 3 areas of just general park projects, budget, and then art in our parks. But just maybe something to think about as well is like what is the purpose of our Rec and Park Commission? What do we see as kind of that really true core asset that you all are here? Why did you volunteer to be here? What were you hoping to achieve through this process? You're not on council, you're on a commission, which is advisory. So how do you want to activate that? So I look at the goals as being that kind of document to keep us feeling like you're contributing, that your time here 10 months out of the year is really meeting these things, and you're feeling like you're walking away like, okay, I accomplished something, instead of just coming to a meeting and checking a box.
That's a great introduction. Thank you, Kimiko. And let me highlight two things that she said, and I think these are the questions we should be asking ourselves as we, formulate this work plan for 2024. The first, of course, is what's within the purview of the commission. We're not the council, we're the commission. And more importantly, how would the commission accomplish this work? This isn't something where we're setting these lofty ideas and we're going to say, staff, go do it for us. This is what we are going to do as commission members. So let's open the discussion on this now, but I think that's a useful way to keep in mind what should be on this list for 2024. Maybe it's slightly revised from what we've been working on over the past year. But with that, I'll just turn it open to all of you and get your thoughts on this.
And I just wanted to also let you know, you don't have to solidify something tonight. This can be start of the brainstorming process. You can think about it, you can start to put some ideas. If you want to put something down as a goal, it will require you to go through the motion and voting on it to say, yes, we all want to decide that this is going to be our goal. But if it's just wanting to kind of flesh out some of the different topics and ideas, this is something that can take a couple meetings. And also, so you know, council is going through the same process starting next month for council goals. And is that usually 2 years, 2-year goals that you do?
Yeah.
So they're going to be going through that process as well. And once they have their goals in mind, some of that then trickles downward to the departments and then to the commission. So that might also influence some things further down the line.
Great. Okay, that's a great introduction. Well, commission members, any thoughts? Commissioner LaFleur, and then Commissioner Ono.
I was just reflecting on some of the topics that were raised by fellow commissioners tonight, including myself. And it seems like there's much to be done within the topic of communications, because I know we're up here wondering about what about that surface of that playing field? What about that closed facility? And that's always going to be an ongoing thing. Stuff wears out all the, as the years go on. And it just seems like a worthy goal for the coming year would be finding some ways to further that communication. I know, for instance, when the public goes out to these facilities and sees nothing but closed tape around it, they don't have information that tells them that, oh, we've got a lot in the works and we've got our Rotary Club coming on this, maybe an Explorer group that's going to come on it. So some way to work with you all to get this staff communication out to the public. I don't know, maybe encouraging the use of interpretive information signs actually out on the site that actually explains this is a mess, but in 6 months you're going to love it. So something on the general topic of communication and getting the information from you all through us and back and forth into the public so they can understand it better and hear it.
Great, thank you. Commissioner Medley.
Tagging on to what he said, I have two real big interests. One is volunteerism, getting more volunteerism, but also possibly creating a program where we have Adopt a Park. And that way, the stakeholders of that area take more of a interest in the park, and maybe there would be someone that would then have that information so that if people have questions, they could contact them rather than all you guys on why something isn't being fixed or that they have concerns that need to be just gotten to the city through their main Adopt a Park leader or whatever.
So that would be a subset of communicating about park closures, renovations, changes in
Yeah,
operations.
especially since we've redone all these parks and everything. I just, I know that I asked a couple of friends of mine that are next to a park over by North Davis Ponds. I don't remember the park, just a small little pocket park. And I said, would you guys be interested in like adopting this park and letting letting me know if there's something that needs to be fixed or because I think they had an irrigation problem. They said, yeah, we'd be interested in that. So I think there's people out there that would be interested in sort of taking a little bit of ownership over their local park.
Great. Thank you. I'm sorry, let me go back to the queue. Commissioner Ono, then Commissioner Marigo.
Thank you. Following the comments on communication, I think that is important, an area we can improve for the commission as well as Davis residents. As an example, I know our Parks and Community Services webpages talks about 8 projects that were subject for improvement. And 3, I believe it was Sycamore, Westwood, and Playfields were not done. But it would be helpful to have information as to what the plan is. And I think the commission would be helpful to have maybe a monthly summary of the projects that are not completed, and just maybe a couple of sentences as to status. And that could be shared on the web with the residents, so everyone is kind of win-win with that additional information. In terms of 2024, I'd like to see the commission take a review and advisory role in the community needs assessment. I know it won't be done for maybe 18 months, but as the process continues, I would like to hear feedback as commissioner as to where that is and any issues that are coming up, questions or problems. I think that's important for us to hear. And I think those are, the information about the ongoing projects would be very helpful. I know I was thinking about it as I was looking to the parks the other day. I was remembering that there was a frog statue that we talked about placing in a park. And I never heard what happened to that frog statue. So that's something that, as an information back, would be nice to know. Thank you.
It's in South Davis.
Is it?
Yeah, the frog, it's in South Davis by
San Marino.
Okay.
San Marino Park. Yeah, it was installed a month and a half ago.
Yeah.
I have a picture on my phone if you want to see it. It looks great. Yeah, they did a really good job with it. But it went in, and I think hopefully the arts department will do some sort of an opening. I think they were taking a breather for a little bit after that one.
Yeah, I think
Thanks for that.
it came to the commission many, many meetings ago as a potential art piece that could be placed in the park. It was actually designated in open space, so that's why it didn't ever come back to the commission. So it was placed in Davis, but just not in a park, so then we didn't see it open space in arts.
Thank you. I'll have to go to the park to take a look at it. I know it's rather unique, and I would like to see that. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Commissioner Ono. Commissioner Marigo.
So one of the main reasons I got on this commission was just the turf improvement. I know Dave and his team, they do a ton of maintenance on it, but as I go through the parks and just look at the turf itself, it has a lot to be desired, and a lot of it is just weeds overgrown, and we're mowing weeds, and I think we need to have a discussion about how do we improve to bring it back to lawns. And I know lawns take a lot of water, and there's challenges with that, and I didn't bring it up last year or the year before because we were in a drought, and I understand that. I think we've got to move past that, but we also need to look at, do we want to water weeds, or do we want to bring the turf back and maybe take sections of it out? Because I know there was something I was reading that they wanted, it wasn't Tree Davis. was it?
Yeah.
To take parts of different parks or whatever, and I'm totally for that. But I think if we're going to commit to having green areas, then they need to be green areas that are turf that is useful, not a bunch of weeds and stuff that's in there. So that's something I'd like to explore more.
So what would that look like in terms of a commission goal, or how would that fit into the commission work plan?
I think to probably identify main areas around that we could, because we're not gonna be able to do it all because there's limited funds, totally get that. But to be able to go and identify areas where, hey, this is in poor condition, let's try this section, what we can do to bring the turf back and see if it does improve just the overall status of the park and how people enjoy it wherever it is there. Because we're not gonna be able to do it all, I get that. But
Right, no, I get that that's a city staff role. I'm trying to understand what the commission role is in
how, I think we've got to take the lead on it because we've got to be able to push to identify some areas where this needs to improve.
So you're suggesting commission members will go out there and survey sites in the city inventory and
Be part of the solution of identifying areas where we think we'll get the maximum turf improvement that will bring back from the weeds area. And when I say turf, I'm talking about green grass area. Because actually the outside of the green grass, Dave, your team does a great job with that. They do.
okay, thank you. Commissioner Ono.
Perhaps one way to weave that into the commission function would be to receive interim reports on the landscape maintenance contract, in particular in the area of turf improvement, and so that the commission could possibly review and advise the city and the city council about how well the landscape maintenance program is going.
Okay, that's great. Any other items or suggestions? Yeah.
So, as I think about, why I joined the commission, and a big part of that obviously is inclusion and exposure for youth sports and activity. And so, one of the things that I would really like to see our commission be involved in is acting more as a liaison in form of communication or advocacy for different youth sports, and making sure that there's opportunity and inclusion for all of the populations across the city. And I think you guys have done a great job in the last year giving exposure to more inclusion and underserved areas, and really working hard and putting boots on the ground, as you'd say, to get more individuals involved, just as you talked about with Montgomery and their youth basketball. So I would like to see that the commission support you guys on those efforts even more, whether it's liaison efforts or brainstorming efforts of opportunities, and something that we had talked about too, about bringing some more possible physical disabilities opportunities to your city programming, which is something that the city of Davis doesn't offer. And so I would really like to support that effort. I know that's on my list of to-do things, but I'd really like to see the city move forward and offer some other opportunities as well. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? Any other ideas? Commissioner LaFleur.
I was just kind of riffing on your comments on turf deficiencies and kind of wondering how can we take that up to another level beyond just turf, because I know over the past year, from time to time, we've heard from individuals concerned about how trees are looking and are being trimmed, and I know these are issues that don't just affect parks, but public works and other things. So those individuals seem to feel that we've been an appropriate place to bring those concerns, and it seems like turf, trees, and some kind of fundamental natural elements associated with parks seem like a natural main emphasis for this commission, for the public to know that, yeah, we're up here, there's a night a month when you can come up and talk to us, and we'll engage with you all and hopefully have a better outcome. So if there's some kind of a higher platform to park things like turf maintenance issues and tree maintenance and whatever else may be out there, it would seem appropriate to me for this group. And I know we're not here to wordsmith, but kind of see where I'm riffing on that one.
Okay, thanks, Commissioner LaFleur.
Can I jump in real quick, Chair Fink?
Yes, please.
Yes, I think part of that, what you're describing, right, it cuts across multiple commissions. So I think, figuring where this commission, what that is, if you will. And I think one thing that could overarch on this when you're talking about, well, that's more in public works lane, but I think it was 2017 council adopted an integrated pest management plan, which covers and lays out clearly what can be sprayed, when can be sprayed, how do we deal with weeds. And it's a pretty stringent plan that was laid out related to different types of pesticides that we can use. And you've seen kind of this uptick in weeds, right? And we heard over the last year, I think the city itself, we allocated some funds and did really aggressive weed abatement, and more so on like overpasses where you saw weeds growing up. But it really was, it was tied to the integrated pest management plan. And when you're stepping back and you're looking at, what can be used on the turf, how it can be used, when do we use pesticides, when do we use growth, it really is all tied into that. And it cuts again over trees and around other aspects of what commissions cover. So that would be one you maybe would look into when you're looking at that, is how does that plan relate to your specific lane on this commission? And I would, I think it was 2017, you could find on the city website, but it clearly does lay out what the city expects when we're doing that type of treatment to our green areas.
Any other ideas to put out on the table? Given that we don't have to finalize this evening, and I took notes here, I'd be happy to share with anyone who would like to work on this a little bit further. But maybe not to punt the ball, but perhaps our new chair and vice chair might be interested in mulling this over, and when we next meet, maybe continuing the discussion, and maybe at that point, some of these might coalesce into actual specific language. I think we'll probably get wrapped around an axle here tonight trying to wordsmith it on the spot. But
I think that's a good idea.
if that's agreeable, does that sound okay to all?
Yes.
Wonderful.
Yeah, staff can come back, we took notes as well, and then say kind of what some potential goals could be, and then I think expanding that and saying, okay, if these are the goals that you want to select for this year, then what are the measurable outcomes? So it makes it a little bit clearer and not being so just open-ended, but before you commit to a goal, say, like how you were asking more detail, like, okay, how does that look for us? What does that mean for us? What does that actually look like? How do we know that we've achieved that? Versus it being so open-ended, you never feel like you actually accomplished something. So we can put together the list that we have, bring it back to the commission at our next meeting, and then be able to kind of delve in more and figure out what those measurable outcomes would look like.
That's great.
Wonderful. Okay, I see shaking heads around the dais here, so that's wonderful. All right, well, let's dispense with 6B and move on to 6C, which is designating a panelist for the Landscape Maintenance Services RFP review.
Mr. Chair, can we just open a public comment?
Yes.
On the item, just since we have a public member here, if there's something that they wanted to add for.
Absolutely. Would you like to make a public comment on any item?
Sorry if you wanted to.
You don't have to, but if you want to, there's an opportunity.
Actually, my name is Jennifer. I'm just a representative of Davis A. Riso and Davis A. Riso United. Here in town, we use a plethora of fields here in town throughout the entire year. And so I really came just out of interest to see what y'all do. And thank the Parks Department when we deal with issues on the field. They've been very attentive to it and address issues as best as they can. You got some rules that's handy, hopefully, that you already know about. So, but I just wanted to kind of check on it. That was all.
Great.
Thanks.
Well, thank you.
Keep it going.
All right, and thank you for reminding me about that. So 6C is designating a panelist. I know we had Commissioner Ono had volunteered to do this, which I was heartened by, but is there anyone else who is interested? And this is to, the commission representative would work with city staff to help review and score the RFPs for the landscape maintenance service contracts for the 2 zones of the city. I don't know if there's more to say about what the commitment is on this, and time-wise, I would imagine maybe there's a meeting, maybe 2 at most, but.
Yeah, we will definitely meet to discuss scoring and to go over the proposals. the RFP will be live for 26 days, and then when it closes, that will go into the acceptance of the proposals and then the scoring process, which will eventually lead to the awarding of the contracts.
Okay, that's great. Well, and this is an opportunity for us to participate in the city's process, and we appreciate that very much. Is there anyone else interested in participating in this? If not, is there any objection to designating Commissioner Ono as our representative to work with Dave and his team on this RFP review?
I'd be happy to make a motion to nominate Commissioner Ono to be our panelist for the Landscape Maintenance Services RFP review.
Okay, we have a motion on the table. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by LaFleur, moved by now Chair Chambers, and seconded by now Vice Chair LaFleur. Any discussion on that? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Any abstentions? Okay, that's a 7-0-0 vote. Congratulations, Commissioner Ono, and thank you in advance for helping out with that. Okay, item 7 is the long-range calendar, and I think this is just a review for where we're going from here. Did you want to say something about that we won't be meeting in February? Is that still the intention?
Yeah, we didn't have anything in particular on February, and since we'll be getting the RFPs submitted on the 2nd and then having some time to review, it's staff's preference to not have a meeting that month so we can focus on the RFP. So we would come back together in March.
And the survey closes too.
The survey, yeah, the community needs survey also closes. I think the equity one also closes in February. So we have a lot of data coming in February.
That's fine with me.
Okay, great.
Yeah, and just a reminder to commission members, this long-range calendar is a living, breathing document. It does modify, it changes a bit as we work through the year. But as we see it now, this is what is arrayed out for us for future meetings for 2024. Okay, Commissioner Ono.
One question, would it be appropriate for May or June to bring back the results or recommendations for the RFP for landscape maintenance? Because that would be the timing, and I think that would be great for everyone to hear how that went.
Yes, it will come back to the commission before going to council. And so the goal is to have the RFPs awarded to be live by July 1. So yes, it would be coming sometime in April or May.
Great.
I just have one thing. So as you guys get the results for the community needs assessment, and perhaps like council's goals, et cetera, would that be then inserted somewhere in here once we have a better idea of the timeline? Okay, great.
Okay, any other discussion on the long-range calendar? If not, is there any objection to adjourning? Seeing none, we're adjourned. Thanks, everyone.
Excellent. Thank you.